Welcome back. In this demonstration, we are going to learn how to make a pinhole camera for Photo One. What you're going to need is a cylindrical container, and this is what it's going to look like. We're going to make the interior completely black, the black paper, and we're going to put a shutter on the front of it right here. And this will be the chamber in which we'll put our photo paper into to make our pinhole image. Okay, so getting started, the things you're going to need the one 12 by 18 piece of black paper. You'll need an empty cylindrical container. The cornmeal containers work pretty well, or if you want to get oatmeal containers too, or whatever your family eats, that's good. We'll need some tape, a pencil, a pin, an X-Acto knife, glue, and a little piece of square tin foil like that. So getting started, what you're going to need to do first is you're going to need to clean out your cornmeal container, make sure it's nice and neat. Then you're going to take your cornmeal container and you're going to measure it, or whatever your cylindrical container is, and you're going to measure it. You can just hold it flush with the bottom of the paper here, and then mark a little mark up here at the top, so that you kind of have an idea of where it's going to be. Now, hold your ruler parallel to the bottom edge of your black paper and simply draw a nice straight line. Now, this line that's parallel, this part here is going to fill in the cylindrical container, but we want to make a fringe at the end. So just simply take your ruler, keep it lined up with that line, and draw a line along the other edge of the ruler. That's going to just give us a little strip of paper. It doesn't have to be huge, but that gives us a little strip of paper to make a fringe out of, which you'll see in a second. Then just simply line your ruler back up with this bottom line so we see the inches, and mark a line in between those two vertically about at every inch. It doesn't need to be super accurate, approximately every inch. Okay, so you've got every inch going on. Now this will work. This is going to be a little overkill. We're going to have more than we need, but that's all right. You can just recycle the remaining or give it to a friend, or if you mess up, you can use that too. All right, now this bottom part here is going to be the interior of our camera. Okay, so we're just going to cut this out. And as you cut this out, just stay straight on the line, and you want to keep this extra top piece here. I'm just going to set that aside. I'll show you what to do with that in a minute. Then cut the fringe and just slot those so that they're little bended pieces, so we can bend those and glue them down to the inside of our container. And this doesn't have to be super accurate. All right, and that's probably going to be more than enough, like I said before. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to take your cylindrical container, you're going to roll this into a circle and stick it in, like so. Okay, now you can kind of see this fringe is a little bit up. What we want to do is this fringe is going to be the bottom of our container. So I'm just going to, first of all, find the edge where this piece starts. It's going to line up here so you can see the edge of my paper here. That's where like the end of it is. I'm going to give myself one overlap. So I'm going to take this out and I'm going to cut right here, so that my paper just overlaps one little fringe bit. And this paper I can save for my shutter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to take these fringes, I'm just going to bend them at a 90-degree angle right along the pencil line. Actually, if you put your pencil line really, push down really hard, it'll make your thing good. Now this is what we got. Now we're going to put this inside of our cornmeal container. Before we do that, I'm going to take some glue and put glue on the outside edge here. This is gonna be glued to the cornmeal container. And notice that I'm putting the pencil drawn on side down so that the clean, not pencil-y side is out. Okay, you want to get a generous amount of glue so it's going to stick well, but don't like over glue it so it gets all sloppy and nasty. Then roll this back up so that it's in a cylinder, and we're just going to slide this in. Okay, try to get your fringes kind of squished in, and we're going to slide it down in. And my fringes on the inside, of course, are popped back, and I want them. You might have to reach inside and grab the little pieces of paper and kind of bend them back up. There we go. Okay, so when I press it down inside, you can kind of see how those fringes bend and create a nice seal at the bottom. Now I'm just going to take my hand and gently press it down, the fringes down, so that they stick to the bottom. And I'm just going to gently kind of roll my hand around the inside so that it's the black paper sticks to the inside of the container. All right, now if you have any extra left over, I kind of overestimated just a bit, you can simply take your scissors and trim that off. Okay, if you're perfect and you don't need to, well, that's just fantastic. But most of you will probably overestimate or underestimate, and that's just fine. All you do is just trim that excess away so we don't have it there anymore. Okay, and that stuff can get recycled. Okay, so there's your chamber or the interior of your camera. Now we gotta do two more things to kind of finish off the interior chamber. What you're gonna do is we're gonna need a cylinder, or a circle rather, to put at the bottom of our cylinder. So I'm simply gonna trace the bottom of this container like that, cut it out and glue it down right over the fringe of the interior that we made. Okay, we made that fringe so there would be a nice overlap. We cut those inch sections so that they would overlap and not let any light through. It's really important that as we make this, we make it so there's no possibility of the light coming through at all. We don't want any light in there. Okay, so there's my glued on container, or glued on circle. I'm gonna slide it on in, and I'm gonna gently press it down with my hand on the inside so it's nicely glued on the inside. Okay, now that we've got the interior finished there, we're gonna work on this cap. This cap is made out of like plastic, and it's the cardboard at the top is a little bit on the thin side. So we're gonna make another cylinder, circle rather. I'm gonna make it just a bit bigger. Of course, my perfect circle ability is not so great. So there's our circle. I'm gonna just cut it out, and we're gonna glue that to the top of our cornmeal container. All right, so now what we'll do is we'll glue this top to our cornmeal container. Now, I left a little bit of extra, as you recall. I left a little bit of extra here because I knew it was going to bend. And you can take this and fringe these edges just a bit. Okay, you can see that extra that I left because when we slide this in the hole, we want it to have a nice stiff seal so that that like paper is gonna crinkle around the edges. Okay, and the first couple times we're gonna have to kind of force it in and get it to fit. All right, now as that dries, it's kind of this paper on the inside here is a little bit on the waxy side, so we're gonna kind of let that dry and hope that it sticks pretty well to the waxy paper. Okay, now I'm gonna set that aside. As that's drying, we need to make the shutter or the opening. All right, so at this point, I'm gonna use an X-Acto knife and I'm just gonna cut a little teeny squarish hole through my cardboard. Now, I've found that in class, it's much easier if I come do this for you because it takes me a couple seconds to do it. Whereas if I give these X-Acto knives to you, it takes a little bit longer and the holes aren't quite as nice. Okay, so I'll probably just be coming around during class, cutting little holes in your cameras as we go. Okay, so there's my little shutter. That's gonna be the hole through which we make our camera work. Now you're gonna take your little piece of tin foil, you're gonna place it over the top and you're just gonna tape it down. Okay, so I'm gonna use regular old masking tape. You'll probably need to get 4 good solid pieces. And you wanna seal that up. And it really doesn't matter if it's pretty. If you want to like take your time and like make it all super pretty, that's nice. But you don't have to. It doesn't need to be pretty. It just needs to be functional. Okay, so now I've got that little piece of tin foil over the hole that I've made. Now you need to take your leftover scrap of paper and we're going to make a little hinged shutter. So I'm going to take my paper, just going to take this little shutter here and I'm gonna tape one end to it. So this is the end that's gonna stay taped down. And then I don't want it to be super long because I want it to stick down pretty nicely. I'm gonna trim that down, I made it too big. All right, and this I'm going to tape onto the front. Then I'm just going to leave a little bit. I'm going to take one more piece of tape here because I got a little bit too small. I'm going to take this second piece of tape and just kind of fold it back a little bit, so that I've got a little piece that's not gonna stick down so that I can have this kind of stuck over the top and no light can get in, and then I can just lift that piece up. Okay, now our last piece is we need to make our aperture, or the little hole that the camera will go through. You're gonna use just one little push pin and you want to try to make your hole as small as possible and as even as possible. So you just have a nice teeny little hole like that. And that's gonna let enough light in for our camera. Okay, now this shutter will go closed and that will be finished. And your lid will go on top after we get our stuff in. And if you want to, you can, and if mine's a little crusty here, I'm gonna go trim that off after the video. But that is basically how you're going to make your very basic pinhole camera for Photography 1. Thanks for joining me.